Good morning, our advanced students. How are you? Good. Please let's get to the first lecture on my own part on the course Marine Pollution and Management, MSM 841. And this first lecture is titled General Principles of Pollution Control and Management. All right, so find general principle of pollution control and management, but we are going to narrow it down after defining what pollution is and one or two other things, we need to narrow it down to marine pollution because that's actually our area of jurisdiction. Just as I said earlier, marine pollution has been defined by Gesam. Pollution generally has gotten its own definition from different types of individuals in different fields. Okay, so everybody has his own or her own definition of what pollution is. But to us as marine scientists or marine biologists, we want to go by the definition of marine pollution as stated by GESAM. GESAM stands for Group of Experts for the scientific aspect of marine pollution. So this group of experts define marine pollution as the introduction by man, directly or indirectly, of substances or energy to the marine environment, resulting in deleterious effects such as hazard to human health, hindrance to marine activities, impairment of the quality of seawater for various uses, and reduction of amenities. Okay, so if you try to analyze this definition, you see a lot of things. Number one is that pollution is always man-made. It's always anthropogenic. Then number two is that there's a difference between, or there's a distinction between pollution and contamination. The quantity of the energy, of the introduced energy or introduced substance, has to get to the extent that it causes danger to human health or hazard to human health, hindrance to marine activities, impairment of quality of seawater, and so on. So the level is also very important. All right. What are the types of marine pollution? Definitely, we know that coastal areas most times are also agricultural areas. And then in the process of agricultural activities, you have herbicides, being used to chemical being used to kill herbs or weeds. Then the pesticides to control pests. And of course the nutrients, even the fertilizers, the NPKs, they will ultimately be, as a result of runoff, deposited into the marine environment. So they cause pollution. You also have energy. Example is thermal energy. That one is very clear to us. And the Ebin power plant, for example, that's what we call coolant water. Just water they use to cool the engine, to cool the power engine, the thermal power. Now this will definitely be released into the water body and then leading to thermal pollution. You have sewage. Sewage are fluid or liquid form of the waste. Okay. And in them you have a lot of fecal coliform. Okay, and then you also have nutrients. They be released into the water environment and then they also pollute it. You have industrial effluents. Industries, they are influenced from production activities. They release chemicals, they release metals, they release radioactive substances. Then oil, especially in the form of oil spill, about 3.25 million metric tons of oil is spilled into our ocean annually and globally. You also have biological types. We, especially in the form of ballast, we're talking of marine pollution now. Form of ballast, the ballast water. Ballast water has a lot of invasive species, and of course, we understand what we mean by a ballast. The water that is used to fill in a compartment or the vessel to give it buoyancy. Okay, and when you get to where you want to upload, you have to remove the water. These are called ballast water, and they have a lot of invasive species, that are uploaded, in the water from where the vessel left the port, the country from which the vessel has left. So the ballast water has a lot of invasive species. For example, the green crab, the Cassinus meyanus, the killer algae, the sea walnut, the vine wrapper whelk, the zebra mussel. All of them are invasive species, and they are major form of marine pollution. Okay, that are contained in the ballast water. Then you have the solid waste. Now we talk about a lot on the plastics, whether micro or macro, and many other forms of solid waste. They are major form of marine pollution. Now, talking about the solid waste, we have debris, okay, that constitute this solid waste. Now, this pie chart globally, you can see that as a component of marine pollutants, the medical or personal hygiene contributes about 1.03%, while dumping activities in the vessel and around the port or around the maritime environment constitute about 5.40%. Smoking related activity 24.94%. Ocean or waterway activities about 11.71%. Then you have the shoreline and recreational activities, taking the big chunk, of the chart, 56.91%. All right. Okay. So the marine litters, the solid waste, the marine litter, the solid waste are major form of marine pollution. Now, why are we interested in these solid waste? Especially because we know that a large portion of them are non-degradable plastics. Now, by the right side of the slide, you see a sea turtle. Now, this sea turtle saw a transparent plastic bottle, okay, and then it mistook it for a jellyfish because they eat jellyfish. Jellyfish is also somehow white or transparent, gelatinous, just like some of the plastic, floating plastic waste. So the sea turtle thought that this is a good food. It goes on and then goes stocked. That is exactly what you see at the right side of this slide. Also, seals and sea lions starve after being entangled by nets or muzzled by 6-pack rings. Okay, or when they get entangled by these maybe abandoned nets by fisher folks and so on. So they get entangled and then they get starved and they will die. And plastic debris kill about 100,000 marine animals annually, as well as killing 2 million seabirds annually. So it's a very serious matter. There are other remote or negative impact of this marine debris, this plastic waste or this marine litter. But we can see, even from these statistics, that is a serious matter that needs to be tackled. Now, oil is also another major form of marine pollution, especially in the form of oil spill. Now, sources of oil spill, of marine oil spill pollution, and how do we get this oil pollution, from marine environment? 45% of this oil pollution is as a result of marine transport. 15% land-based, 8% natural, well, and then 32% oil industry. Maybe doing exploration, that's doing the exploration, you have about 32%. Now, on the right side of the slide, you can see some visible and obvious impact of the oil spill. We can see a board there that is being like the weather, the feather is being soaked with oil, so the insulating property of the feather is destroyed, and then what happens? The bird got killed. Then we have what we call fish kill, where you have fishes floating because they are dead. They couldn't swim again because the water in which they are resident is polluted by oil, and then they get suffocated, and then they will die. And then we have the sea turtle, okay, also being killed by oil spill. And then the juvenile one, the shell is being decalcified. The shell is being eroded, as a result of the oil on them. Then we also have the sister, the other organism there also that is being destroyed by the oil spill. Now, if you look at it, different categories have the bird, which is actually a vertebrate. So the fish, which is actually a vertebrate under the phylum Pisces. Then the sea turtle is an invertebrate reptilia, and then you also have in a plant, in the plant category, and then in the lower organisms. So the oil spill here, the oil pollution impacts on virtually every category of living things in the marine environment. Generally, the impact of oil spill can be mechanical, can be eutrophication, can be saprogenic, it can be toxicity, it can be mutagenic. Okay. Now, mechanical in the way of, well, maybe obstructing navigation, okay, hampering swimming, being or getting some organisms like that the sea turtle we saw the other time being stocked, okay. The sea lions, because they are stocked, they are starved, and they are killed, they are dead. So it could be mechanical. It can also be eutrophic or eutrophication. Eutrophication means the release of nutrients in high amount, that lead to bloom. The bloom of some microphytes, especially those ones that are toxic. It can also be saprogenic. It means that it facilitates decay. It facilitates putrefaction. Now this is because in fact, it's related to eutrophication because the nutrient there is being utilized by microbes, some aerobic microbes that enhance the process of decay. Then toxicity in the way of being like a poison, being toxic. to both to all the organisms, both plants and animals that are there directly and also indirectly, through consumption along food chain. It could also be mutagenic. Mutagenic means that it leads to mutation. And what is mutation? Mutation is the change in the structure of the gene of a particular organism, leading to variant, variants from leading to variant form, okay, that may be transmitted to subsequent generations. Variant form. We have been hearing of variant form of COVID-19. Okay. Now, variant forms are actually caused, or variation or mutation is actually caused by the alteration of single base unit in the DNA, or the deletion, insertion, or rearrangement of a larger section of the gene or chromosome. So mutation is a serious matter, okay, that is caused by the alteration, either the alteration of the single base unit of the DNA, or the deletion of the larger section of that DNA or chromosome, or the insertion of a different form of, the gene or DNA, or even rearrangement. So mutation is just like disorganizing the original form of that gene, that will now lead to a variant form. And variant forms are difficult because, for example, we are trying to get vaccines, okay, and then you get a vaccine based on the existing, gene composition of the let's say the virus or the organism that you want to get vaccine for. And now you have finished getting the vaccine, then the organism mutates. The organism creates a variant, and that variant, it didn't consider that, but it didn't factor it in when you are creating the vaccine. So you need to now how to now remake, or trying to to form another form of vaccine to include things that can actually deal with the variants. And these variants, they come mutation is a most time, especially in virus, is a continuous thing. So they keep mutating, they keep mutating because I don't know, maybe they find out this form now, we've gotten humanity has gotten something to take care of it. So let's change to another form. Okay, because that's mutation. Now mutation can be as a result of pollution actually. And then another form can also be in the way of being carcinogenic, that is causing cancer cells. Cancer cells are cells that divide, relentlessly, continuously. They divide continuously. They don't follow the real meiotic division or mitotic division. They don't follow that real organized sequence of division. No, they divide relentlessly, forming solid tumors, okay, or flooding the blood with abnormal cells. Now, what we are trying to say that marine pollution can be, can cause cancer, can be carcinogenic in form. All right. Now, the pollution control approach. Now, development and industrialization make generation of waste inevitable. As long as there is development, as long as there are manufacturing, as long as there is industrialization, waste must be generated. Even in your little home, so long as you do cooking, so long as you clean the house, so long as you do washing, there must be waste that will be generated. All right. So, but as the pace of industrial activity intensified and the understanding of cumulative effects grew, a pollution control paradigm shift became the dominant approach on environmental management. Now, what do we mean by that? Since we know that there must be development, then we have to find a way to tackle the waste. So two specific concepts serve as the basis for the control approach. Number one is the assimilative capacity concept, and the second one is the principle or control concept. Now, the first one, the assimilative capacity concept, aside the existence of a specified level of emission into the environment, which does not lead to unacceptable environmental or human health effects. Now, what it means that there should be level of emission. There should be specified level of emission. Please, no one should go beyond this level of emission. There's a particular level of emission that the environment can accommodate, that the environment can assimilate. So that's why it's called assimilative capacity concept. The level of emission that the environment can accommodate, can assimilate. So that it will not go into unacceptable environmental and human health effects. Now, the second one is the principle of control concept, which assumes that environmental damage can be avoided by controlling the manner, controlling the time, and controlling the rate at which pollutants enter the environment. Okay, we are going to see a little more about that when we proceed. It's only the manner. The state is important. The time of release is important. The rate of release is important. And that concept or that principle is called the principle of control concept. All right. So let's discuss the prevention, control, and remediation of pollution. Since we have said that pollutants actually must be generated, or waste must be generated, and then of course it is the waste that actually pollute the environment. So we can try to prevent, control, or manage it, or remediate it. So let's discuss these three. Conventionally, there are three ways of addressing pollution, and they are prevention, control, and remediation. These form a hierarchy in which the first priority is to prevent the pollution. Please try as much as possible to prevent the pollution. That's the priority, but most times it's not feasible. Then followed by controlling the measure, okay, controlling the measure or controlling the pollution. And then we have the next one, or the last resort, which is remediation. All right, so let's take the first one. Preventing pollution prevention. Now, in trying to prevent pollution, there are two areas that we need to look at. The first one is outright ban of the pollutant. Okay, so pollution prevention can be defined, okay, in the way of outright ban. It can be a strategy, okay, a strategy or strategies which avoid the creation of pollutant in the first place. Avoid the creation of pollutant in the first place. Okay, according to what Barry Commoner said, he said if it's not there, then it can't pollute. If it's not there, the pollutant is not there, then it can't pollute. All right. Now, but thus, if a chemical whose use result in pollution is eliminated, then there won't be any discharge. Okay, there won't be any discharge. But then the first one that we say the outright ban, what do we do here? Okay, what do we do here? Policymaker, the government, environmentally, what they do here is that they ban. No, it's the outright banning or elimination or phasing out of specified chemical or classes of chemical. ban it outrightly. Don't use it, because if you use it, it will cause pollution. So you ban it, you eliminate it, or you phase it off. Now, such strategies are laid down in the form of laws or regulations by national government, okay, but most time, or less often by international instruments. Example, when you have conventions or treaties and so on. So outright ban. So what we are trying to say is that when you are trying to do outright ban, it's mostly done locally. It can only be done globally through conventions and treaties. And somebody or a country has to be signatory before it could be held accountable. Okay. Now the second one, the second means is to reduce the quantity. Reduce the quantity. Reduce the quantity. Okay. Again, in the context of prevention rather than control, if the use of a chemical which results in pollution is reduced, then the result will almost always be less pollution. Okay. That particular substance or chemical that cause pollution, if you reduce the quantity of usage, then it's very likely you might not have pollution resulting from the usage of that particular substance. Pollution reduction strategies are exemplified if you in North America by what we call by toxic use reduction, that is TUR. So in North America, they call it toxic use reduction, TUR program. And in Europe, it's called clean technology. Okay, clean technology program is what they use to reduce the quantity of the substance that are used. All right, so this is about prevention. Remember, we said prevention is that trying to avoid the occurrence of that pollution in the first place. Okay, you can do that by banning the substance that cause pollution outrightly, or reduce the quantity of that substance, especially in production activity. Pollution control. Pollution control. So pollution control measures cannot eliminate pollution. Remember, it is control. It is not elimination. It's not prevention. It is control. All right. Now, they cannot eliminate pollution. All they can do is to mitigate its effect on the environment. Mitigate, reduce its effect in the environment. Control measures are instituted at the end of the pipe. What they call it, at the end of the pipe, or at the end of the waste. The waste has been generated. The waste have been generated. Then let's now see how to manage this waste. Okay, so we call it at the end of the pipe. Okay, the usefulness of control measure will depend on the pollutant and the industrial circumstances. Okay, the main methods of pollution control in no particular order are as we stated here. The first one is the one we call capture and storage of the pollutant. You capture and then you store the pollutant. The pollutant, you can capture them and then store them so that they will not be released into the environment. The second one is filtration, whereby airborne or waterborne pollutants are removed from waste stream by physical methods such as meshes, filters, and other permeable barriers, okay, such as coke. So you can actually filter the pollutant, okay, filter the pollutant so that what is going out into the environment, okay, or the atmosphere, on the environment. What is going out into the environment is a filtered part. Which means that some things that are dangerous, okay, that are harmful, are not allowed to be released into the environment. Then you also have precipitation, whereby the pollutant is chemically precipitated and then captured in its transformed state or captured by physical methods such as electrostatic charge. Or when we are even in chemistry, okay, in chemistry, when you go to the chemistry lab, sometimes you do some chemical reaction and they will tell you that a PPT is formed, okay, a precipitate is formed. Precipitates are always solid, okay, they are always solid. Most times if you put two liquids and then you get a solid, you say PPT is formed, precipitate. So precipitate can easily be removed even by physical means, by as small as a casual as casual as the way of like decantation. You can just decant. You can by decantation separate the solid, the precipitates. So pollutant can actually be precipitated and then recaptured or removed by physical means or by other means like electrostatic charges. The next one is dilution. The next one is dilution. Now, dilution, whereby the pollutant is diluted or flushed in order to lessen its effect. Okay, because the next one is going to be the next one I want to. That's okay. Well, fine. There's a difference between dilution and neutralization. That there are two different things. I think we should know that. Maybe there are no neutralization. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there are neutralization. Oh. Okay, there's even neutralization before dilution. So let's talk about neutralization first, or what they call destruction. Now, to neutralize means to add a substance that will change the state of another substance. For example, if you have an acid is very dangerous. Then you add a base to it. You are going to get something that is not an acid and is not a base. Now, an acid is dangerous. A base also is dangerous, especially those caustic ones. They are dangerous too. Now, you are using two dangerous things. You are using one to neutralize the other, and then you form salt and water. Water is not harmful, and salt is not harmful, at least in a state that is not concentrated. So that is what is called neutralization. So you can actually neutralize a pollutant. Okay, you can neutralize it, and by transforming it into a chemically or biologically less harmful substance. All right. Now it is different from dilution. Dilution, for example, we mentioned an acid. If you pour water into the acid and you pour a whole lot of water into that acid, you are diluting that acid. That acid is still an acid, even though it can now be a weak one. It will no longer be as corrosive as the other acid, but it is still acid. What you have done is that you have diluted the acid. You have diluted the acid so that it is now in a form that it is less harmful. So there is a difference between dilution and neutralization. So dilution, whereby the pollutant is diluted or flushed in order to lessen its effect. on any organisms, okay, or on the ecosystem, just as I have just described. You can also use get salt, and then the salt is highly concentrated. No, it's called a brine at that spot. At that, the salt solution is like a brine at that. It's highly concentrated. You cannot drink it. Okay, but if you pour a whole lot of water into it, you pour a whole lot of water into it, you have diluted that salt solution that you can actually drink. So dilution is different from neutralization. All right, the next one is evaporation or dissolution. Evaporation or dissolution. Okay. Now, what happens here is that you dissolve, okay, and then you dissolve or you evaporate. You let it escape, from the gaseous form, or you dissolve it, and then like dissolving gas in water, okay, or vice versa, letting gas go out of water. Then you also have utilization, where you actually make use, transforming a pollutant into a potentially useful one, okay, product. Okay, for example, when you have sulfur dioxide and then you turn it into sulfuric acid, okay, and use it as hardcore or root beds. This utilization, a hitherto harmful substance, you transform it into a substance that is not harmful. All right. So you also have what they call out of process recycling, where the recycling is not an integral part of production process. Out of process recycling. At the end of everything, it has become a waste, and then you are trying to recycle. There's also what we call media shift. Media shift is where a waste stream is diverted from one medium, such as air, soil, or water, to another medium. Okay, on a rationale that the medium shift makes the pollutant less harmful. So if the medium is water medium, okay, you can want to take it to a soil medium or an air medium. Now, so long as taking it to another medium will make it less harmful. Then you also have what we call change of state. Change of state. There are basically three states of matter: the solid, the liquid, and the gas. So you can actually change the state of the substance. For example, if you have a sewage which is in liquid state, and you feel that by making that sewage to solid state, it will reduce to make it less harmful, then if you do that, you are doing what we call change of state. Okay, the rationale here is that the new state is always less harmful. All right. So the last option, in remember we said you prevent. If you can't prevent, you control, and then you can also bioremediate. Pollution bioremediation is basically in two forms. That can be majorly in two forms anyway. Can be more than that. That's what we call, anyway, what is even remediation? Now, remediation is needed to the extent that pollution prevention and control has failed. Okay, so when the pollution prevention and control has failed, what do you do next? You go and bioremediate. It is also very expensive, just as control is also expensive. Bioremediation is very expensive, with the cost not always accruing to the polluter, because the one that has done the pollution has gone away. Now, so it's not bearing the cost any longer, unless there are some policy that will drag him back and say, come and bear the cost of bioremediating this environment. Okay, but most time the cost of is not always accruing to the pollutant. Now there are two ways. Okay, there are two modes of remediation. We have the first one called cleanup of contaminated site. Okay, so when we say cleanup, what do we actually mean? Just as in the common sense, it means to clean up. Okay, it means to clean up. You have made a like clean up an act, clean up a mess. Okay, no, which means a larger number of different things within environmental protection. However, that's where we belong. Clean up is a technical term meaning a branch or a mode of remediation. So what do we do here? Even within this restricted use of the term cleanup can mean one. Please let's listen. It can mean one, the removal of pollutants from a contaminated site. It can mean removal of pollutants from a contaminated site. It can also mean the rehabilitation of a site so that it is restored to its full use potential. Restored to, let's call it pristine state, or at least to its full use potential. You have destroyed, there's an oil spill in an environment, you clean up the oil spill. What mean by clean up? You would have heard of organic clean up. What mean by clean up is beyond removing the oil spill. You also need to restore. You need to restore that land to its full use potential, what it was formerly being used for. If it was being used for agriculture, for farming, for planting cocoyam, or for planting yam or cassava or wheat or melon or whatever before the oil spill. Now, when you say you are cleaning up the oil spill, it means that you are going to remove the pollutants that the spill, the oil spill, as well as, of course, in most cases, or in some cases, restore that land to its full use potential. In other words, you can now restore the land to this extent that you can now begin to plant cocoyam again on that land, plant cassava again on that land, and they will grow as if nothing had happened to it before. All right. Again, cleanup potential refers to nothing more than the containment of pollutant within a site, okay, area or body of water. For example, by scraping, sealing, or construction of impermeable floor, and so on and so forth. So, please let's read more about cleanup because it's very important. As master's students, you could actually get a job and that will tell you clean up a contaminated site or clean up a oil spill site, and then you might need to bioremediate. Apart from removing the contaminant, you might need to restore that environment to its pristine state. All right, so we also had a second one, hazardous waste treatment. Hazardous waste treatment. Now, most treatment of hazardous waste or toxic waste now take place in purpose-built facilities by hazardous waste workers. All right. Now, what does it actually mean? From an environmental point of view, the test of effectiveness of a hazardous waste facility is that it produces no output which are not inert or virtually inert. Now, what are we trying to say here? Now, when you say you are treating the hazardous waste, it means that you are treating. But when you say you are treating this waste, this harmful waste, don't end up bringing up other substances that are also hazardous. Okay, so when you treat the hazardous waste in impacted land or impacted environment, make sure that what the product, the outcome are non-hazardous. Okay, so that is exactly what he's saying here. Said from the environmental point of view, the test of effectiveness, that's how we test whether your treatment is effective. The test of effectiveness of the hazardous waste facility is that it produces no outputs that are not inert or virtually inert. In other words, it don't produce any output that are in any way hazardous. All right. So that's about that. Now, principle of industrial pollution management, because when we talk of marine pollution, the high percentage of it are industrial based. Industrial pollution is a very has a very high percentage of the pollution of the marine environment. Now, there are three principles that we need to adopt here. The first one is the cleaner production. Okay, cleaner production. So when we say cleaner production, we mean that it's a production process or management procedure that entails less use of resources than conventional technology that also generate less waste and smaller amount of toxic or other harmful substances. Now, what it's trying to tell us that if you are talking of cleaner production, it has to do with technology. Okay, use technology that bring out or that produces or that releases less harmful substances. All right, so we also have waste management and then waste disposal. Waste management and waste disposal. Waste management or waste disposal. All right. So these are the principles that of industrial pollution management. You have cleaner production, you have waste treatment, and then you have waste disposal. Waste treatment, you treat the waste in environmental friendly ways. Okay, and then you treat by you treat the waste in a way that the output or the outcome of it is not harmful to the environment. Now, if you cannot treat the waste to convert it to any other one that is not harmful, then you dispose. Disposal is the last resort, but when you dispose in environmental friendly way. Okay, something like burning is not a good way of disposal. Even going to landfills and dumping is not a very good way of disposal. So you dispose in environmental friendly way. There are different conventions that there are different marine pollution conventions, and we have the Oslo Convention for the Prevention of Marine Pollution by Dumping from Ships and Aircraft in 1972, the Oslo Convention. You also had the Marpol Convention. The Marpol Convention. Okay. You had the Marpol Convention. You also had the Paris Convention. And then you have the OSPA Convention. So these are different conventions that has to do with marine pollution, which I would want us to actually go through. Knowledge is in the open. go through and read about these conventions. Now, this is important because you, as master student, you don't just read to pass exam. You read to actually consult. You read to actually have a very good mastery of that of the information. You read to actually understand the concept and then be able to apply it. All right. At master level, you're supposed to be applying some of these things. So please read this convention because they are conventions on marine pollution. Read all of them, search materials on them, and get full knowledge of them. All right. So this is where we are going to end the lecture. Is a somehow a long one. This is because I don't think I'll give you more than 3 lectures on my own aspect of this course. So this is the end of the lecture, but they are going to have a term paper. Every lecture will have a term paper. Sorry, every lecture will have a term paper, and this one is discussed in detail the MAPO convention, giving it a critical evaluation, especially as it affects. Please, this is affects. Sorry, not effect. As it affects Nigeria and her marine environment. Okay, submit to joseunilag@gmail.com and deadline is 9th of March 2021. You write, you submit to the email, I will grade it and return the scores. Is part of your continuous assessment. Please study, get to know the concept, and write critically on it. Thank you, and God bless you.